Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. We are going to talk about Basecamp Manager. And the reason we're doing this training right now is because in the Vice President of Education training at TLI, we realized that the timing to add some Basecamp Manager training in there was just too short to do it any justice. And a few people asked for some additional training on Basecamp Manager. That's what we're going to try to do here today. This recording will be made available, so if there's something that you see and then when you go to do it yourself, you can't remember, you'll be able to go back to the recording and find that. I'm going to start with a small little review of some of the changes that you can access as a member. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time on member stuff. I'm going to go then into the actual Basecamp Manager. And the reason I'm going to do some member stuff, however, is because I want you to see how on your side as Basecamp Manager, you can see some of the things that the members are able to do on their side. I am going to share my screen right now. And I had a countdown going. All right. So I hope that this page is familiar to everybody. If it's not, that's a little bit frightening, but this is toastmasters.org where everything you do in Toastmasters lives. I am going to log in like you normally would. And I'm logged in. The way I know I'm logged in is because it says welcome Kristen right here. Some of you navigate to pathways through here and that is fine, but the way I'm going to do it is a shortcut because I like this way better and it's easier for me to remember how to get there. The way I'm going to navigate there is through my welcome Kristen. I call this the secret portal. This welcome can be clicked on and it is your secret portal into pretty much everything. You will see right here, it takes you immediately to your Toastmaster profile. I want to be clear, there's two different kinds of profiles. There's your Toastmaster profile, which is this one. This is your landing page. And then there is your Pathways profile, which is different. We will show you that when we get there. This, I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware that this is where all of your Toastmaster information lives. This isn't necessarily part of Pathways. However, it's important because if you ever wanted to look up your education awards, you can find that here, offices you've held and the years you held them, that's all there. If you've ever sponsored anyone, that information is also here. If you are a club officer, you will have a shortcut to Club Central right here. And if you are a district officer, you will have a shortcut to District Central right here. This is also where you would go if you need to change any of your information. If you move, if you get a new email, this is where you would change everything. But the part we want to talk about right now is the very top right here. This is your Pathways row. I want you to know that you can see right here in this middle a button that says choose a new path. If you are ready for a new path, you've done all of your work and you're ready for a new one, that is where you as a member would go to pick a new path. I also want to let you know that this button right here that says choose a path for another member is very misleading. People believe that they can go and choose a path for another member because it says that. And you can, however, only if they are doing a printed path. As a Basecamp Manager, you can go in here and order a printed path for someone. But if they're doing an online path, you do not have access to choose a path for a member. Hopefully you don't have members doing printed paths and you will never need to use that button. But now you know it's there just in case that is what happens. I also want to show you this forgotten and abandoned tile over here called View the Navigator. Most people never even click in here. But I want to show you that if you do click in here, all of these resources are available to you. Toastmaster Magazine links to here. There's public speaking tips. There's a Toastmaster welcome, information about club meetings and evaluations. There's a video library. This Navigator PDF right here is actually the training manual for Pathways. There's frequently asked questions, and then there's more information about Pathways. If you are the Vice President of Education, you are probably the person doing new member orientations in your club. This is where you would want to go to do new member orientation, because pretty much everything that any new member would need to know about Pathways and a lot of other Toastmaster topics, they are in here. So please don't abandon that Navigator tile and forget that it exists, because it can definitely be your friend. Where we're going to spend most of our time today, though, is in this first tile, the dark blue one, that is Go to Basecamp. First, I'm going to log in there as a member. So I am not going to click this Basecamp Manager. I'm just going to choose the club that I want. And this is only the case if you have multiple clubs, you can pick one. If you're only in one club, you should only see one name there. And I'm going to go. Some of you who haven't been in Pathways for a while, this might look a little bit different to you. The good news about Pathways is that they continually make upgrades. And those upgrades are usually based on questions, concerns, complaints that they have received from Toastmaster members. So they are trying to make it more user-friendly. And I think if you spend any time playing around in here, you will find that that is the case. This is your landing page as a member. It says, welcome to Basecamp Kristen. This is my landing page. All of my paths live right here, and we'll go in there in just a second. This tab, Speech Evaluations, that gives you access to every single evaluation form for all of your projects that you are currently signed up for. And then there's tutorials and resources. Again, this takes you to a bunch of different videos, a lot of cool things that you can look at when you have time. And then also a shortcut to feedback, badges, and documents, which I'm going to show you as we navigate through here. I'm going to click on Paths and Learning, because this is where most members spend most of their time. This is where any path that you've purchased that you have not completed yet will show up. You can see that I currently have 3 paths that I'm working on. We're not going to do a training on how to go through here, so hopefully you guys know how to do that at this point. I want to talk about some features that you guys might not know exist. One of those features is external training. If you are somebody who is in multiple clubs or who often visits other clubs and possibly does a presentation there, or for instance, today I am doing this presentation outside of my club. However, I am counting it for use presentation software, part of level 3 of my team collaboration. So that's considered external training. If you have somebody who's doing external training outside of your club, what they should be doing is these 3 little dots right here, add external training. If they go there, they can fill this out, say what they're doing, where they're doing it, who they're presenting it to, what date they're doing it, what path and what project it goes to. And then they can submit it. I've already done that. So I want to show you that as Vice President of Education, I received this email. it says that Kristen Harrell has submitted an external training request. And it's asking me to go in and approve it. Once I approve that, then it will show up right here. If you see here, using presentation software, I am planning to do this outside of my club, so it shows up separately and it says it's pending approval. So once it's approved, it will show up right there that I have an external training approved. And the reason to do this is so that if your members want to get credit for something, it's a way for them to give you a heads up, hey, I'm doing this and I want credit for it. And it's a way for you to keep track of what's going on with your members, even if it's happening outside of your club. So that's a cool resource that they've added. The other thing as a member is that you can go right here to feedback. And you can ask for feedback from people. The reason you might want to do this is, again, perhaps you're doing a project that is outside of your club and your club members, maybe there was one or two that were there to see it, but you didn't get a formal evaluation for it. Or another reason is if you did a project and you had an evaluator that you think maybe didn't quite give you the honest feedback that you were looking for, and you know a person in your club who is a great evaluator, you really want feedback from them, you can request it here. And as you can see, I've done this so that you guys can see what it looks like. I requested feedback from Michelle. I said, I'd like to hear your thoughts on my presentation. And I also shared it with managers. So as a Basecamp manager, you would be able to see any feedback that your members have requested and received. I also added a note. This was for my Basecamp manager training. And Michelle sent back, wonderful job as always. Of course, we just did that as a sample so we could show you guys what it looks like. So that is a tool that you might want to use as a member in order to get additional feedback from people. And then as a member, you also have access to your e-portfolio right here. This is a place where you can house documents. I'm going to click on document right here. And it gives me files for all the different levels that I've been working on. I'm going to go into level 4 and show you. The project I'm working on here requires that I get 360 evaluations from people. I received one and I went ahead and I uploaded it here. And the way you upload is just like you upload files to almost anything else. You can click on add a file, you drag and drop it, or you go navigate to it in your computer and you add it and you click add. I'm not going to do that right this minute because I'm sure you guys have added files before you know how that works. But this is a great place where you could also keep your evaluations. I know a lot of people keep their evaluations on paper in a file, but now that we're doing a lot of things digitally, that might not work for you anymore, or you don't want to have to print out every evaluation because it got emailed to you as a PDF anyway. So instead of printing it out, you just save it to your desktop, go here, upload it, and now you have it. Remember at the beginning, I told you there are 2 different types of profiles. One was your Toastmaster profile, where all the information about you as a Toastmaster and your history lives there. Right here in Pathways, where you are anyway, you have a Basecamp profile. This is your Pathways profile. And if you click on it, you can add information about yourself here. But the aspect that I want you guys really to talk to your members about is this right here. This is where you can log when you do other projects or roles besides speeches. The reason that you might want to do this is because some of the levels require that you are an evaluator or that you are a Toastmaster. If you go and put that information here on your own profile, then when your Basecamp manager goes to double check and see if you did everything you needed to do for the project, they will be able to access your profile and see the dates when you did all of these roles. Obviously, I need to update some of mine because I've done them more recently, but this is something that as a Basecamp manager, if you can get your people in the habit of using that, it will save you a lot of time and effort of having to go back and look up things. That's really all I wanted to go over with you on member, how to go in as a member and the new things that you can access as a member. But before we move on to actual Basecamp Manager, I'm going to stop real quick. And Anthony, can you see if anybody has put any questions in the chat, or if there's any hand raises, any questions you have about Basecamp as a member?
So I see a question from Bob Dobson. His hand is raised. Would you like to raise your or unmute and ask your question, Bob?
Yeah, the thing you were just showing on the profile, does that keep a record of all the times that you've done all of those different jobs?
No, it's only the most recent one. So like I should update mine, and if I wanted to update it, I could click this little pencil right here, the edit. Oops, that was the wrong edit. And I could go in and change the dates, which I haven't done. So basically you need to, anytime that you fulfill any of those roles, you need to go in there and update that. And then it'll just have whatever the most recent one is. Yeah, it doesn't keep multiples. It just keeps the one copy of it.
Is there
and that is one of the, it would be nice if they did keep multiples, but.
Is there somewhere that Toastmasters International or Free Toast Host or somebody keeps track of all of the things that you have done?
Yes, so if you use Free Toast Host and your club keeps a proper agenda, then those files are available and you can go back and see what you did and when you did it, which is really helpful for people that have done projects and didn't remember to record them or are missing evaluations. A best practice for a club is if you use your Free Toast Host, and if anything changes, I know a lot of times we'll have blank spots in our agenda and the Toastmaster will fill them in as we get there, or somebody is signed up for something and they don't show up and somebody else does it. If you go back to your agenda after the meeting, make sure you fix all of those. And Toastmasters calls that reconciling the agenda. So once that agenda is reconciled, then it becomes part of the permanent record. And then you can look back as far as you want. Anthony, were there other questions?
I'm looking right now. See if anybody else has their hand up or is trying to get my attention. Seeing none, and oh wait, I have one from Alan Blake. Can you get credit for recent past external training presentations?
Yes, so if you have done an external presentation and you didn't request permission to do it, and maybe your Basecamp manager didn't even know that that was a thing, because a lot of people haven't been using that, I suggest you just have a conversation with your VP of Ed or whoever your Basecamp manager is and tell them, this is what I did, this is where I did it, and I would like to count this for this project. So just have that conversation, but that external training option is just so much easier. It eliminates all of those. So in the future, if you could train your club members to use that in that case, and there's not a lot of people who will be doing outside presentations, but there are a few, and it's a great way to have a record then of that. And then there's not a question. Even if a new Basecamp manager comes in next year, it's still a permanent record in the file. Anything else before I move to Basecamp Manager?
I do not see anybody else with their hand raised or in the chat box at this time.
Okay. Awesome. I wanted to point out that anytime you click on this Toastmaster Pathways logo up here in the left-hand corner, It's basically the same thing as clicking on home. I mean, you could click home or you could do Toastmasters Pathways logo. Either way, it takes you to the same place. I'm on a laptop and you can't actually click on these. You have to hover over them and then go down and click. So for me, something that's a one click is just easier, but you get the same place no matter what. And then because I want to go back to my original landing page and re-sign in as a Basecamp manager, I'm going to click right here where it says return to my Toastmaster profile. And that will take me right back here where we started. Now I'm going to log in as Basecamp manager. So I'm going to click that and I'm going to click go. All right. Most of you know if somebody has completed a level and they've requested a completion from you, you would get an email that says somebody has requested. Also, where I showed you the email that said I had a pending external training request, that's also going to show up here. So I'm going to click in there and show you guys. I don't have anybody with level completions right now, but this is the one that I showed you in my personal Basecamp profile that I had requested external training for using presentation software. If this had been somebody else in my club, I could click into here and read the information about it. Obviously, I wrote this, so I know what it is. I'm going to go over here and click this little green check mark. This looks exactly the same as if you had somebody who had a level request. It would look the same, except it would say what level, and you would do the same thing. You would click this little check mark. Now, I noticed that, and also, if somebody's doing a level request, put something like great job or congratulations, put some kind of comment in here. Since I'm just doing this for myself, I'm just going to put approved and submit. And now that is going to be available for me. I noticed that Pasita is in here, and she recently had a situation that I know I've had in my club, and maybe others of you have had in your club, where a member either just clicked through and did a bunch of stuff and submitted a completion without realizing that's what they were doing, but they hadn't actually done the projects. Or we had one member who thought that the icebreaker was the only thing you had to do in level 1 and submitted for completion. It's okay to click that red X and make a comment that the projects need to be completed, and I would have a conversation. I wouldn't just out of the blue deny their request. I'd make sure you have a conversation with them to let them know what's going on and why you're denying it. Denying that request does not like cancel out their path. It doesn't do anything except give it back to them basically to finish. So that is absolutely an option if that's what you need to do. That's pretty much all that happens in pending requests is you say yes or no to requests. So we are going to spend most of our time right here in member progress. And sometimes it's slow. Depending on how many members you have and how much data is involved in your, this is basically a database for all intents and purposes, that will determine kind of how slow it is. So some of you that are in really big clubs, it might take you a little while, but you just wait for it. It happens. All right, so this defaults to the reports tab. Up here, you can see there's different tabs. It defaults to reports. Now mine, because I recently refreshed this as of yesterday, defaulted to having everybody's name in my club. Now, a lot of you may be looking at that and saying, wait a minute, when I open the reports, I do not see anybody's name. I just see how many level 1s I have, how many level 2s. Yes, some of you, if you haven't refreshed in a while, that's what it will default to. You have to refresh this page. And the way you do it is you go right up here to the upper right corner, this little arrow, and you click refresh. I'm not going to do that right now because it takes a while to refresh. I would suggest if you're going to be working in Basecamp Manager, you go in here, you hit refresh and go get a drink and come back, because it's going to take you a little while for it to refresh, which is why I went ahead and did it yesterday so that we don't have to wait for it. So as you can see, now that it's refreshed, I see everybody's names and I see where they are in level 1. Now, this is cute, but it's not a whole lot of information that's helpful. So I want to see some details on this. What I'm going to do is, inside this level 1 box, there is an arrow, and one of the choices is view details. Now remember that Pathways works on pop-ups, so you must disable your pop-up blocker if you want it to work. I'm going to expand that so you guys can see it. So now I get the graph here, but I also get details about everything that's in the graph. And this, again, is about level 1s. So keep in mind, that's all we're looking at. So in level 1, I can see that Venetia has completed her icebreaker, and it was a required project, and the path that she's in is dynamic leadership, and the date she completed it was 5/20/2019. She completed the evaluation and feedback module in dynamic leadership on 10/15/2020. So what she's working on right now then is researching and presenting. She's in progress, which means she has clicked on it, but she has not completed it. And the last time that she was in there was on 12/17/2020. So this is very helpful information, especially if you are a Basecamp manager and your previous Basecamp managers did not track what everybody was doing, because then you come in blind having no idea where people are or what they're working on. This gives you the opportunity to go back and basically audit where all of your members are, and you can see what they're doing and when they did it.
Kristen, we're not seeing your same screen.
Why not? Because it came in as a pop-up?
Possibly.
Oh, that's not good. All right, let me. Yeah, it says I'm sharing screen, but maybe because it came in as a pop-up. Okay, well, then let's do this. Okay, let me try something else so that you guys can see what this looks like. Note to self, when things come in as pop-ups, they don't always show up. All right. So what I am going to do is I'm going to hit new share and see if it will let me share the analytics. All right. Now are you seeing one that has analytics? Can I hear a yes or a no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, note to self, you have to do new share and choose a different screen. All right, now you can see what I was talking about. Venetia did her icebreaker in dynamic leadership, completed on 5/20/2019. And this is everybody who's done anything in level 1 and what they did and when they did it. Again, super helpful for auditing past stuff that you weren't the Basecamp manager for and have no idea where people are. Now, every one of the levels, I'm going to go back now and back to here. So every one of these has that same option to go view details. I'm not going to do it because it will look exactly the same as what you just saw. It will just give you information for level 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. You have other options over here for reports. I personally think the individual progress is the most useful, and it's pretty much the only place that I spend time as far as the reports are concerned, but there are other reports here. This just tells you how many level completions you've had, which could be useful. Apparently I'm the only one so far this year. There's the path progress, and it takes a second for these to change over, so you've got to kind of wait for them. And again, I seem to be the only one doing that. Path type. I'm going too fast for the reports. They don't like me going that fast. So I'm going to slow down. We're going to wait for this one to load. Like I said, it's a lot of data in one place. It does take a little while to load. While this is loading, Anthony, were there any other questions that on the reports?
Let me check. So Jan Richardson asked, how do you disable the pop-ups?
So usually, and because I'm in a different mode, I can't really see that. But usually in most of your computer browsers, you'll have like a little settings wheel up in the upper right-hand corner, and it should give you the option in there to disable your pop-up blocker.
Great, thank you.
The next one is, who do I contact at TI regarding access to Base Manager? I don't have access, and I'm VPE from Rhonda Brown.
Okay. So for Pathways, it's education programs at toastmasters.org. And sometimes when you're on TI, there will be a chat icon and chats are available. Sometimes they're not, so you might have to email, but they're usually pretty quick about getting back to you. And I would double check in Club Central and make sure that Club Central says you're the VPE, because sometimes clubs forget to go and change that. All right, so this has loaded. And again, you have options to view details if you want to. You can even export these to Excel. If you want to make an Excel spreadsheet for tracking, you can export them. And always this button right here will give you your options. And you can't see it until you hover. So just anytime you see a box like this, you can pretty much hover over the corner and see if you have options there. So those are your options. And this one just tells you like how far everybody is in the paths. I'm not going to try refreshing this again, because again, that will take too long. And it really doesn't give you a lot more information than what the other one gave. It just gives it to you in a different format. I prefer to use the individual progress and look at each level because it makes more sense and it gives you more information. We don't have anybody in any different types of path deliveries. I assume if you had somebody in a printed path, you would have information here. We don't have that, so so nothing shows up. Recently selected paths, if you have, this only shows you within the last month. So this would only apply if you have brand new members and you wanted to double check and make sure that they had signed up for a path. You could look at the recently selected paths. And then this external training, nobody's completed any external training, so it's not showing up here. But if you had people who completed external training, that would show up here. All right.
Okay,
okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. We have one more question, and this is from Liz Babcock. I can only get detail on level 1. How do you get the other levels?
Okay, so if you go down and you see this level 2 box, if you hover over the right-hand corner just of this box, then you can click view details, and then all the level 2s will pop up. So each level has its own square where you have to pop the details. Doing view details does not open it for all of them. They're each individual. And you probably can't see that because it's a pop-up. So I'm going to do a new share and show it to you so you can see it. So here's my level 2 projects in progress because I clicked the view details on the level 2 box. And I'm going to go back to my other share so you can see my main screen again. Okay. Before I go out of reports, is there any other questions on reports? Okay. The coolest
Kristen,
thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I typed a question into the chat box. For external training, is that anytime I give a speech outside of the club that I'm a member of, that I need to do this external training and send something saying I completed this particular path objective at this club, or how does that work?
Yeah, so again, that's a conversation you can have with your VP of Ed. For my people who are in multiple clubs, which there's only a couple of them, I know them. They're all district leaders. I know what clubs they're in. And if they're doing it in another club, I'm not particularly concerned about it if it's one of their clubs. The only time that we've actually used this in our club is, for instance, a training that's outside of any club, or I have 2 division directors in my club. And if they do a guest speaking role at a club that is not one of their clubs, that they're not enrolled in, then we use it for that. But it just depends on your VP of Ed and how comfortable they are with what you're doing where. Especially when you're in a lot of clubs and you're bouncing around. If you want to keep that record for yourself, like if I'm working in level 2 and I absolutely know I'm going to give this level 2 to Henderson Toasters when I'm done, but I finished basically all of the evaluation and feedback portion of it at Morelli House Toastmasters, I might go ahead and use the external training just so that I have a record of that's what happened. But it's optional. It's nice if you want to have a record, I guess, where I'll leave it. But it's always a conversation between the VP of Ed and the member, how extensively you want to use that.
Kristen,
okay. Yes,
Kristen, when someone is doing something in the like level 4 and 5 outside of the club, where they're organizing a small groups of something, and they're doing it through their church or through another organization, how do you enter that external training to when they're starting, or do you wait until they're finished?
So the member would request it. I don't know if you remember, and I'll go back to it when we're done with this, but when I was in my own path, well, actually, you'll be able to see it here in Basecamp Manager. I'll show you. If you can hold that question for 1 second, it'll be better with a visual, and I'm about to get to where that would show up, okay? Mm-hmm. All right, so we were only right now in this reports tab. Obviously, tutorials and resources is exactly that, and it's pretty much the same ones that you can get from the homepage. So if you need tutorials and resources, absolutely go check that out, see what's in there. We're not going to do that today because I want to show you back in Paths and Learning. Now, this looks like exactly what you saw when you were in your own Pathways Basecamp, but you see right here, this has the club instead of Kristen. It doesn't say Kristen anymore. But the coolest thing that they have updated, and it's so amazing, is right over here on the right-hand side now, next to Paths and Learning, you see View Team. As a Basecamp manager, I can click on View Team, and I can go to any one of my club members and see their exact Basecamp. It's like mirrored. So I can see exactly where they're having issues. In the past, if somebody was like, I don't know, I completed it, I did everything, and it's not moving on, I don't know what's happening. We either had to get together, sit down at a computer, have them log in and go through it, or I had to have them screen share and try to walk them through it. Now I can go look. So I'm not going to go into anybody else's. I'm going to stick with mine. So now I'm looking at Kristen Harrell as if I'm a Basecamp manager who's not Kristen, keep in mind. So now I can see exactly what Kristen Harrell is doing. And this is where, because Kristen Harrell has requested this external training right here and it shows up, I can go see it. And I can see that it's been registered. I can view the details of it and see everything that's in here. I have options to look at the transcript. That's not super helpful, but it's cool. And so I can see what's going on. Are you guys seeing that?
Mhm.
Okay, good. Now I don't know which things are going to show up and which things are not. So I'm going to go back and show you in here what I can't see, which is almost as important as what I can see. I can see Kristen's Basecamp profile. So I can look here and I can say, has she been a speech evaluator and when? Okay, yes, she was a speech evaluator, 2/13/2020. Hopefully it would be more recent than that, and make sure that she has done that work. I can also, because if you remember back on the member feedback page, I had clicked right here that we could share it with the managers. So now as Basecamp manager, I can see if Kristen has received some feedback, and look, she has. The other thing I can do is I can give her feedback. So this as a Basecamp manager is amazing. Not only can you give somebody feedback as Basecamp manager, and all I'd have to do is type it in there, but I want to show you this little medal right here. I can assign them a badge. And these are like cool little feedback badges. So if, say, Kristen Harrell, who's not me, gave a speech on something super personal and difficult in her life, and I thought that was super, super courageous, I could click on courageous and I could post a badge for Kristen that you got the courageous badge, and I could share the feedback, and this will actually see it says share with everyone. When I give somebody something like this, then it's shared with everybody in the club. Anybody in the club can see it. So I'm going to say that speech was very personal and heartfelt, whatever you want to say, and you can share it. So this is a cool tool. It's just another way. We talk all the time about recognition, that some of us are not great at recognition, that we really need to get better at recognition. And especially now that we're online and you can't really give people things in person, this is a great way, whether it's just a badge or it's feedback or feedback and a badge, it's just a way that you can recognize things that are happening in your club that you feel strongly about or that you believe deserve recognition. So that is an amazing thing that you can do as a Basecamp manager. But what you can't do, and this is what I wanted to show you here, you see this ePortfolio tab, which is where I uploaded documents as a member. See, it says 0 documents. Those documents that the member uploads are personal. So maybe I got an evaluation and it was not good. I want to save it because it's something I want to refer back to. So as a member, I upload it to my ePortfolio. Well, your Basecamp manager can't see that. So things that you upload there are personal only to your profile, and nobody else has to see it. But I can see right here any badges that Kristen has earned. And every time you finish a level, it automatically gives you the level badge. And every time you finish a path, it gives you a proficiency badge. And you see here, because as Basecamp Manager, I gave Kristen this courageous badge, that now shows up in Kristen's badges. Now, if I log on as a member now, I will see that badge pop up where it wasn't there before, because the Basecamp Manager has assigned that to me. And you can do this for anybody on your team. I chose myself just because I had put in feedback and other things for you guys to look at, but I just want to show you, it's not just because it's my own. I'll go to Michelle, she won't care. Now let's do Karen. So now I'm looking at Karen Moreo. These are the badges that Karen's earned. She's earned 7. I can go to her path in learning. I can see exactly where she is. She's in progress on the mentoring program. Well, that's important to know. I want to know that she's mentoring somebody. And these are all the things that she's working on. The great thing about this, I believe, besides just being able to see, is being able to diagnose issues. Because I don't know how many times I've had people say, I finished it, I did all the after assessments, I did everything, and it's still not telling me that I'm done. Okay, so I can go, I'm in Karen right now, I'm looking at Karen. I can go open her curriculum and I can see exactly what she's completed. I can say, no, you didn't finish level 5, so you must need to do the after assessment there. Or even if she had done it, but this path completion still said 0, I could tell her, no, you need to go in there and mark your complete because you haven't finished that. So now I can diagnose the problem and better serve my members. So that is a huge, huge enhancement to Basecamp Manager, is just the ability to see everybody on your team. No matter where you are, there's always going to be options. You can click on here. Here's a place where I could add external training. If it was something that was already done, and as a Basecamp Manager, let me make sure it lets me go in here. I could add some external training, but the problem with doing it from here is it doesn't let me assign it to a specific member. So it's going to save, but it's going to save under the club profile and not the member profile. If you just want to have a record of it and you need it here, then here, but I would recommend that you don't, that you have the member do it so that it saves in their profile and not in the club profile. But it is an option for you. If you do that, I would make sure that somewhere in here, because it doesn't ask you who the member was, but I would make sure that you put the member name in, like in your description, you know, Kristen Harrell completed whatever at Basecamp Manager training, and do that. So at least you have a record of who it was for. But I think for the most part, people won't necessarily use that option. Do we have any questions about either the feedback or the viewing your team part of this discussion?
Liz, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
You got to the team view through Club
Yeah.
Central, but I missed how you got to the Club Central
Okay,
to get to
so
that.
I'm not in Club Central, I'm in Basecamp Manager. So I will go, let me go back. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go back to the start page. Remember I said the secret portal is clicking on your name? All right, so all I did was I checked login as Basecamp Manager. I clicked on go. And then I went to member progress. Which is slow. Which defaults to the reports. As I said, that's not what I want to look at. I want to view my team paths and learning. So up here in this blue right here, I'm going to go to paths and learning. And then when you're in paths and learning, right over here on the right-hand side is view team. So I'm going to click on view team, and then I can pick whichever team member that I want to look at. And you can double check that you're seeing the member that you want by looking now right here where it used to say club 4948682. Now it says Kristen Harrell. So now I know that I'm looking as Basecamp Manager at the profile of Kristen Harrell. And that works no matter who I pick. I can pick any team member, not just myself.
Any other additional questions?
Gerald. So now I'm looking at Gerald Gunny. I do want to make one comment though on view team. If you remember when I logged in, I had the option to choose to log in to any of my clubs because there's a drop down. Because I chose Henderson Toasters, only the Vice President of Education or Basecamp Manager for Henderson Toasters can view me. Anthony is the Vice President of Ed and Basecamp Manager for Morelli House Toastmasters. If he goes to view team right now, I will not show up because I have not logged in to Morelli House Toastmasters. So if you have any club members who are in dual clubs and you can't find them, that's why. It means they're logged in somewhere else. So if you're going to do a full audit or something like that, and you really, really need to view them, the only way for you to do that is to ask them to log into your club. And all they would have to do that is to go back to where they originally logged in and choose your club. So you'll see if I choose to log in now to Morelli House Toastmasters, this pop-up, I hope you guys can see the pop-up, but it says, please confirm that you are switching your home club from Henderson Toasters to Morelli House Toastmasters. And I have to say continue for that to happen. Once I do that, and I'll show you, I'm going to do that so that I can show you that I don't show up anymore. Okay, so I have now changed my home club to Morelli House Toastmasters. I'm actually, you see this where normally I would check here to go log into Basecamp Manager. I am not a Basecamp Manager in Morelli House Toastmasters. So now that option totally went away. So I can't even show you guys actually that I don't exist in Henderson Toasters anymore because I can't even log in. Actually, maybe if I go back to Henderson Toasters, see, when I go back to Henderson Toasters, it has me change my home club. So I can't show you guys that. You'll have to take my word for it that if your members are logged into a different club, they will not show up on your view team. So just be aware of that. We've had people think that they lost people or their report was wrong or something, and that's absolutely not the case. The other thing that I wanted to make sure you guys are aware of, and I think pretty much most people know this at this point, but when you have somebody who finishes a level, and you will obviously go in here, and I don't have anybody right now, but if you did, you'd click the check mark, you would approve them. That's all well and good, but that only applies to pathways. That does not give your club any credit in the Distinguished Club program. It doesn't give your member credit in the Distinguished Club program toward any education awards. Pathways is just basically a database where the information on your projects and what's going on with Pathways lives. It does not communicate to Club Central, which is where your Distinguished Club program lives. So once you do the check and you approve the request, you can, and this is another improvement because you used to actually have to log out and log back in to get back to Toastmasters to Club Central, but you don't have to do that anymore. You can just go back to the start page and go into Leadership Central, Club Central, and then submit an education award. Select the member, whoever it is. Obviously, I'm not giving anybody anything right now, but if I clicked on Karen, it would only show me what she has coming up. So because she's working in these two, I could give her credit for either one of those. And she's also working on Pathways Mentor, so that's available for her. Right now, this DTM is available here, but that's going away because the DTM through Pathways is done a little bit differently. Or it should go away, I should say. We don't know what's going to happen until it happens. But that's how you would go back, which is, yes, it's an extra step. And it would be awesome if Pathways would talk to Leadership Central, but it doesn't. And at least now it's just all you have to do is click on return to the start page and go straight into Leadership Central. So that at least they eliminated a bunch of steps there. One of the reasons why they don't talk and maybe never will is because of your people that have multiple clubs. Because just because I finish a level in Henderson Toasters does not necessarily mean I want to give that DCP award to Henderson Toasters. Maybe Henderson doesn't need it. Maybe they have all the level 2s that they could use and my level 2 would just be wasted on them. But one of my other clubs needs a level 2. If they spoke to each other, I would have to be super, super careful that I logged in under the club I wanted to give it to before I hit that mark complete button. Otherwise, it would be an automatic situation. Now it's not. I can finish it as long as I make sure I communicate to my VP of Ed that this award is not going to Henderson, it's going to Morelli House. Please do not put it in Club Central because that's happened before where VPs of Ed get ahead of themselves. They click the check, they go over to Club Central, they put it in, and then find out after the fact that we didn't want to award it to that club. So if you have people with multiple clubs, as a Basecamp manager, just make it part of your practice when you click that green check to double check with them if your club is getting this point before you put it in Club Central. And that will make your life a lot easier because trying to backtrack that, I think they've even stopped letting you backtrack it. It used to be you could call them and get it fixed, but they may have even quit doing that because I know they're having a lot of problems with it. So just don't put yourself in that position. If you have members that are in multiple clubs, just make sure you ask. And it's a simple conversation to save a lot of hassle. Okay, we are coming, well, we are actually right at an hour, but I scheduled an hour and a half just because I wanted to make sure I was available to get all of your questions answered. Therefore, if there are any further questions, we can stay on right now and get them all answered. If not, then you're absolutely free to go back to your football or whatever else you have going on. I think we have a raised hand, Anthony. I saw it pop up.
Yes, Pasita, go ahead.
Okay, let's see. All right, my question is about pathways. We know that the level 1 and level 2s are the same for all pathways. If we enroll in another pathway, is it still a rule, quote unquote, that we have to repeat level 1, level 2? We cannot use what we did on the original pathway.
Correct. Yes. And there has been talk, some of the new international directors are, I believe, planning to discuss the possibility of changing that in some way. However, there's no guarantee that that's going to change. So at this point, the level 1 and the level 2s are the same, and you have to redo them. I've done 5 level 1s and 4 level 2s so far. And yes, you repeat the icebreaker. Okay, that's great. So if you know you're going to be repeating the icebreaker, then maybe change it up a little bit. Do an icebreaker update, like what's happened to you since you did your first icebreaker, or just talk about work in one icebreaker and just talk about home life in another icebreaker. There's a lot of ways to work that out. And then obviously the next 2 speeches and evaluation and feedback are on any topic. So, you know, that's just every day you do a speech. And then researching and presenting, that's kind of fun because you get to research another topic that maybe you're interested in and didn't do the first time. Level 2 is a little bit more difficult because after the 5th, this is my leadership, it makes it a little hard to make that different, but I've managed. I think the last one I talked about how my leadership style has changed being in district leadership versus what it was the first time I did the leadership style speech. So just make it work for you. And I would caution you as a vice president of ed, don't be too picky about the topic. I had one person who had to do the mentoring speech in level 2 and insisted she had never mentored anybody. After having a conversation with her, she said, well, I did train a service dog. Okay, you know, as vice president of ed, if you want to talk about mentoring your service dog, I'm okay with that. So as long as people are sticking with the spirit of the project and they're doing the projects, as the VP of Ed, I would kind of be a little bit lenient on some of those topics, especially with people that are repeating the same project. Are there any other questions?
There's 2 comments that are really good in the chat. One is that to remember to get your free path by March 31st for renewing last due cycle if you haven't gotten it already yet. And Alan Blake said that doing the icebreakers and level 1s and level 2s help the clubs each year and get their DCP points. So that's one good thing still about it right now.
And that's very important, actually. Thank you for bringing that up, because if you have a club that has a lot of established members, pretty much everybody's been there for a long time, they've all done their level 1. And if you don't have people going back and doing level 1 again, it's really hard to get presidents distinguished because you can't get that DCP point if nobody's in level 1. So it is good that they can go back and do it again. The one proposal that I've seen for changing it, which may or may not happen at some point, probably definitely not while COVID's going on because they have too many other things to deal with. But one thing that's been discussed is having a beginning path, which is just a level 1 and a level 2. And then all new members have to do that. And then levels 3 through 5 split off into the different paths. So that's one option that's out there and maybe it'll happen. But for now, just be creative and make it work for you. Were there any other questions, Anthony?
I see no more questions in the chat box, and I see no hands being raised at this time. I'm looking. Jean Dunford says, thank you, Kristen. A lot to remember to do as a Basecamp manager.
There is. One thing I really want you to know is you're not going to break Basecamp. You're not going to break it. They have people they hire to try to break it. That's their job, to try to break it. So go in there and play. Click on this, click on that, see what happens, and play around with it. That's the easiest way to learn. And like I said, this video recording will be available And if you need to go back and watch a certain part, fast forward to the part you want to look at and look at it. And there will be another training like this done by Lori Leonard on February 13th at 10 a.m. I'm just waiting for the link for that one so I can send that out. If you feel like you really need to do it again, feel free, the more the merrier. If you are a VP of Ed and you think your backup Basecamp managers, your president and secretary really need this training, you can send them there or send them the link to the video. I will be sending the link out right after this. As soon as it converts to MP4, it's going to be uploaded to YouTube, and then I will send the link out to everyone. Is there anything else before we go? I did want to show you, if you haven't claimed your free path yet, if you just go back to your landing page and you click choose a path, it's just like the ones that you pay $20 for, except if you haven't claimed your free path yet, then when you get to the checkout, it'll just be $0. So it's not, you don't have to do anything special. You don't have to call TI or email them for your free path. If you have a free path coming, it will just be $0 and you'll be able to choose it from there.
I see Ken Richardson, you had your hand up. You're muted, Ken.
No, I was just saying goodbye.
Oh, okay.
And thank you.
All right. Bye, guys. If you think of questions later, please feel free to email me. Anthony, maybe you can type my email in the chat for them. It's toastmasterkristen2020@gmail.com. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Also, Carol Campbell is our program quality director. And if you think that your club needs additional pathways training and you would like to arrange that for one of your meetings, then feel free to email her, caroltmnv@gmail.com. Anthony or Carol, maybe you can type that in the chat, and we can set something up. Anthony is our Pathways ambassador this year, and either he or someone that he helps pick can do a Pathways training for your club if you need it. Were there any other comments or questions before I close the recording?
Thanks for your effort, Kristen. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. There's a lot of fun stuff in there. Just go play with it.
Anthony, you forgot the 2020.
Oh,
Fix that. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming. And I just want to remind you, Basecamp Manager can be fun. It can be useful. It's really not that scary. Don't be afraid you're going to break it. And we are always here to answer questions. So please don't get yourself overwhelmed or feel like, you just can't figure it out. If you can't figure something out, we will help you figure it out. There's always somebody to reach out to. I'm going to say goodbye now and log off. Thank you very much.